Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of One Vision, the FinTech Fuse. Joining us today is our Sandeep Sood, CEO of Kunai, a FinTech company using AI to help banks fight fraud, streamline compliance, and modernize outdated operations, which is a hot topic du jour. And Sumant Shringari, CEO and co-founder of Pontus Labs. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
All right.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you both too. Now, whenever we talk about fintech, we talk about agentic AI, we talk about using technology to modernize operations, fighting fraud, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is something we have been talking about every single day for quite a while. And typically, the topic goes straight to what challenges are we trying to solve? What are some interesting use cases? How are things different now compared to before? But before we go there, let's start from the very, very beginning, because I think you two have an interesting story to tell when we come to what is the origin story of Pontus? How did that actually got started?
Yeah, that's a really fun story. So Pontus was so I met my co-founder Rashab, who's an awesome guy. Um, he was crazy stories. His big headline was he was on the AI team that found Osama bin Laden, and I was working with him for like 2 years at this company called Gordian. And I was like, I gotta start a company with you. So we went headlong and started a company called Pontus. And we were doing not what we're doing now. We were doing AI privacy firewalls, and we got 3 enterprise contracts to get privacy into a lot of LLM systems. And man, it was really exciting. But Jan 4th, 2024, I got married. January 22nd of 2024, OpenAI created their enterprise edition with privacy, and all our contracts got canceled. So Rashab and I were just loading. Like, what the heck are we gonna do? This is all we had. And we kind of got inspired. After working with these enterprise teams, these were in cost centers, privacy, legal, HR, and finance. These are people who care about this. We saw a lot of inefficiency throughout. But I didn't really want to go through the enterprise procurement process again and fail again. We had to like figure something out. So I was like, the best way to actually get to the roots of the problems is to work with a consulting partner. Figure out someone who's actually already working with these banks, working with these large enterprises. And I found this guy named Sandeep Sood, and he was on the podcast talking about he's like making this challenger consultancy to try to destroy Deloitte and Accenture. And I was like, I gotta talk to this guy. So I sent a tweet. I was like, he's gonna build the next Accenture of finance. And I'm gonna let Sandeep talk about this from his perspective, but that's where Pontus kind of started.
You know,
Yeah.
you
Oh,
are the
sorry.
only person who would use the word privacy and interesting or exciting in the same sentence, by the way. Sorry, Sandeep.
It is exciting. Privacy is a fascinating field where there's not much of automation. People are like, there's like, you hire teams of human beings looking through logs to vet, and he's just like, wow, these people need help.
Okay, so Sandeep, let's go with you. How did you come in when you saw the tweet?
Yes, so I saw the tweet. I don't use Twitter that often, so I was surprised that someone was adding me so aggressively, like with such a grandiose statement. So we chatted. I just hit him up back, and I was like, "Hey, we should talk. I found this intriguing," and we just hit it off right away. We hit it off personally, but we also hit it off in a deep way professionally because we were thinking about how to solve what we see as a giant problem in corporate America. We were thinking about it in a very similar way. And that was through a consultative approach. I don't want to say consulting or services per se, but rather we saw that the only way to solve these problems was by talking directly to the executives managing these systems and then building something that would specifically solve their issue, not trying to white label something that you can serve to a million people, but rather really going specific problem by specific problem. And so Sumant had this approach, and I had decades of working with these large executives, and trying to build a challenger consultancy, trying to solve these problems through conventional approaches in software development. And he really brought something to the table I hadn't seen before. And it was simple and elegant in a way that I could tell he had spent hours and hours and weeks and months thinking through what his vision for automation was going to be. So yeah, it was just a very fortuitous meeting.
You know, one day I need to see that tweet. I am not on Twitter anymore. I still have an account, but I hadn't gone to it for, gosh, over a year.
I'm
But
surprised at what took you away from Twitter.
it's a different conversation for a different day over liquid
Yeah,
food. How's that?
I'm
But
excited to hear that story.
I do want to see that tweet. You know what? We should put that in the show notes as a gift because I am very curious. Twitter is this place that I built a huge community. Gosh, decade ago, maybe. Showing my age now, but it's the place where you bring people together. We just come together virtually as well as in person conferences, right? Normally, you know, when you're sitting, I still remember this. There was one time I was sitting in a conference in San Jose, and
Mhm.
I saw this guy. He just kept tweeting and tweeting, tweeting with that hashtag of the conference. I'm like, who is this dude that just keep posting? Next thing you know, he was sitting right in front of me. So you build communities that way, and you know, in
Right.
your case, you find people to work together that way. So it was a very effective means of bringing together. But this is not about me. This is about you too. So clearly, Sandeep, you were intrigued and impressed enough to actually start something and work with Sumant. So, Sumant, what were the challenges that you were trying to solve in that marketplace? Let's go back to that story.
Yeah, so once I started chat with Sandeep, I didn't want to do the thing that we did the first time, where we had a technology and then we were trying to solve the technology, and it wasn't true to us. And so what we kind of realized was, Sandeep, we saw that there in corporate America, there's this bunch of manual work that was just occurring across finance, legal, accounting, HR, everywhere. Everyone's basically taking data from databases that they don't really understand, then they put into a spreadsheet and they create a report.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they were doing in the 2000s. They're still doing that in the 2020s. And with all the AI, and it's been 3 or 4 years since the AI revolution, they're still doing it.
Yep.
And and we asked the question, we're like, why the heck is that? It's not their fault, right? Like it's us, right? You look at like consulting partners, they oftentimes will give them a $20 million transformation project and nothing occurs in 3 or 4 years, so they feel kind of burnt. And Sandeep was trying to solve that through his consultancy. But moreoverly, like if you look at the second part, the software providers, they're doing the same thing. They would sell you a large suite of software, say this will solve your outcome out of the box. And then a couple of years later, nothing was kind of solved. And so our take was, let's just combine both. Let's be the management consultants and the technology providers. Start with the people, like go from the exec who knows about the big picture, go to the individual who's holding down hundreds of millions of dollars of risk and processes by just in spreadsheets, understand them, understand their process, map it out, and then deliver an outcome, meaning like prototype it within weeks, not months or years. And the best part was to align everyone to this outcome, to this everyone wants, only get paid if we deliver. And that was the transformational aspect from us.
Gutsy, I would say.
It is gutsy, yes.
Totally good. Yeah.
All right. So share with us, what were some of these interesting use cases that you were able to roll out with your clients?
So one of the biggest things, it's super interesting as a technologist. Oftentimes, I'm talking to an a finance team, and they're like, man, this is an impossible task. And I ask them why, and they're like, I have 8 or 9 different data sources. I need to get payroll data in. I need to get my employee directory data in. I need to get this random spreadsheet that's found here. And I said, what happens now? Well, I have to talk to an individual, talk to 8 different teams, and they're all putting the data in, and they're doing all this spreadsheet calculations, and then create a report. I've seen structured finance deals with MBS, ABS done in spreadsheets. I've seen literal financial statements that go onto the P&L of public reporting done in spreadsheets. All of this. And you're like, how do you solve it? And instead of trying to fight them and saying, like, you got to learn SQL, because that's what most technology vendors say, like, put it into Snowflake, learn SQL, don't be an accountant. I was like, no, what we should do is make their lives easier. It's like, do you actually want to copy paste the data in? They're like, no. Okay, great. Go into your spreadsheet. There's a tab called Pontus. Click Pontus. Click Get Data because we know exactly what spreadsheet it is, who you are, and you've done this 30 times, so we can recognize the pattern. Spreadsheet's important. Do your business logic, calculations, create charts, all that, and then you have this formula. You just go equals Pontus workflow. You click, drag, drop. You tell the macro like generate my invoices, and it dumps all of those PDFs directly in your drive and slacks your whole team, and it's already integrated into your ERP. Magic. Like that's how we should do it. We should go to where people are working instead of forcing them onto a new system or a new platform.
Go to where people are already working in places they're familiar with and environments that they're used to. That seems like common sense, but yet, why are we where we are right now? I'm super curious because I do talk to a lot of companies that are trying to create efficiency, right, using the technology tools and work with people process and get to an outcome faster, easier, and save time and all of that. Why weren't we able to get there before? Speculation?
It's so interesting. I think it's because the margins wouldn't support it. It's like economically, before, if you were creating a software company 10 years ago, you would need 100 people. And therefore, you would need to figure out how do you lock in your customer? Don't be customer centric in any way, right? And the consumer companies, the Airbnbs in the world, Uber, were trying to bring value to the consumer and decrease the take rate. Now it's coming to enterprise software where I'm building a business where I only need maybe one engineer who could do the work of 10. And now these simple solutions where I'm not afraid about giving a lower cost alternative and locking in my customers is there. So all these software providers are trying to build systems of records, lock you in, and then upcharge you and not be really outcomes focused.
I think that that's a good point. From a technology perspective, I think a lot of things have happened. One would call it the perfect storm, right? You have the maturity of the tools that we have where we are right now. So let me ask you a different question. Because
Yeah.
if we look back at, let's say, the last 2, 3 years, right? Where all of a sudden everyone is talking about, well, we're going to use all these tools, we're going to automate our processes, we're going to get all these ROI out from this.
Yeah.
And in financial services, especially, so many companies just rushed in and they all launched proof of concepts. 80
Yep.
something percent, I think
Yeah.
the number was, FIs have launched POCs. But yet, when it comes to scaling up, right? Launching POC is easy. That's the easy part.
Of
You take a
course.
little piece, but scaling it up to where you're comfortable with it in a production scale, that's way, way, way harder. And I think at that point, the number drops to single digit. Any ideas or advice, if you will, on why do you think that is the case, and what in particular can your team do to help?
Yeah, I can venture an answer here because we work with both the quote unquote labs departments and the actual departments doing real work every day at these corporations. And I think the best answer to your question is that there's nothing to scale. The use cases that they're solving with AI or any form of automation are what they think the work should actually be or what the work would be in some ideal case. But no one, even within their own corporation, is going to the actual teams that are dealing with 10,000 hours of compliance work or uh, invoicing that takes a team of 12 half the month to get done manually. They're not thinking about these use cases because they don't demo well. They're not something they can post on X and get a bunch of feedback on. And so I think that it's a lot of fake work. It's showing that we have done something that is automation without actually addressing the core pains inside of these corporations.
And to add on to Sandeep's point, like we're so aggressive in finding people who actually have real problems and not trying to get the fancy AI. A question I ask is, hey, if this solution had no AI but solved your problem, would you buy it? And if the answer is yes, of course, then we'll work with them. And if they say no, we really want AI on this, then we actually don't work with them.
But it looks
That's
good
how
on
aggressive.
paper.
Yeah.
Right? That's all they want. And in the end of the day, there was an organization whose name I would not name. At the end of the day, they want something to look good in the press release, right?
That's
They want to look like, oh, we're so innovative, we're doing all these things. So they would put so much effort in picking things that
right.
may not give you the best bang of the buck, but it will give you the most beautiful, elegant press release that they look
That's right.
amazing.
Yeah.
So, so there is that we need to deal with. So what's next for Pontus? And would I dare ask what's next for the industry? Because so far there's a magic word that neither one of you two have talked about yet, which is AI agents. Everyone talks about agents these days. So let's start with what's next for Pontus.
Yeah, so for Pontus, what's next is we started in finance, the financial services, but to be honest, this is a horizontal platform. We are helping accounting teams, we're helping uh, risk teams, we're helping so on. But all these processes, if you go to other global 2000s, are kind of equivalent. I- and that's our next leap. It's basically jumping from our niche in banking and going beyond.
Okay. What about what's your take on what's next for the industry?
It's
Oh, sorry,
Go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Sandeep. No, go ahead, Sandeep.
Yes, so I just wanted to call out something that the way you asked the question, you said we have not yet talked about AI agents. And there's an intentionality behind that we found. And it goes to Sumant's previous answer. We believe that unprecedented amounts of automation are about to be unleashed. I think there's a, no matter how, whether you believe in AGI, AI, anything in between, um, there there is no doubt that unbelievable amounts of productivity are going to be unleashed. But I think the industry is currently caught up in looking for the shiniest tool. Can this thing do this task 30 seconds faster? Can it handle 1 million tokens? And we're approaching the problem from the exact opposite side of the spectrum, which is, can we reduce manual work in a meaningful way? And if we can do that at any level of scale for a large corporation, it is going to have far profounder effects on the industry as a whole than if we were to start out with a very shiny AI agent that does one or two things very well. And so I think that approach, it's where Sumant has inspired me most deeply, is we are intentionally just going to where the manual work is and not even talking about whether it's agentic or this or that. We simply want to focus on its automation.
It's interesting because I've talked to I think at this point 5 public C-level executives. When you talk to them, number one is not AI agent. Like they in their to-do list, it's not number one is not AI agents. That's never on anyone's to-do list. Number one is how can I create efficiency for my company so that we can deliver a better experience for a customer, reduce costs for our customers, or scale further without adding more headcount. That's always been the goal. And you peel the layer of every single of these orgs. No one knows what's going on. Like you literally ask a head of a department, and you'd be like, you got to talk to this person, this person, this person, and this person. And you realize the mess is if you can organize and orchestrate the connections between each department, figure out a solution that's end to end, right? Like Moore in Crossing the Chasm had this quote: the founders of my generation don't understand what the product is. They thought the whole product is here's my fancy software platform, here's my tippy tap, and boom, money, right? Like that's what they thought. But what the whole product is, can you train my team on it? There's not that much change management. Can you help and integrate with my platform? Can you actually be on my premise? It's a regulated industry. Can you actually get the work done, like the software get the work done? And then lastly, can I maintain this? Like, is this going to break tomorrow? Can I have it there? And if you do everything end to end and deliver an outcome to your C-level executives, to the heads of departments, and to the individuals running the process, that's far more transformative. And yes, we have AI, but that's not the important bit. That's never been the important bit. No project has failed because of technology. It's always failed on all those 4 other things I mentioned.
I think that's something that's worth repeating. And I do wish more founders will focus on the problem the way that you guys do. So appreciate that. And thank you so much for joining us on the show. Before I let you two go, where can people find out more about your company? Where would you point them to?
Yep. Please follow me on LinkedIn, and I will have on LinkedIn. You'll find my website pontus.so, and you can learn more about us there.
All right, now I'll put that in the show notes as well. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining us on the show, and look forward to seeing what's next coming with Pontus. And for the rest of our audience, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of One Vision, the FinTech Fuse. We'll talk to you next week.